episode of Powermove Makers. This series was created with a simple goal in mind: to bring to the table high-level executives, successful entrepreneurs, and just all-around inspiring human beings. Not just focusing on their success, but really trying to shine a spotlight on the road they traveled to get there. Now, this week's guest, her name kind of goes without saying. Everybody knows that voice, but she is a journalist, radio personality, entrepreneur, humanitarian, 1/3 of the radio inducted morning show Breakfast Club. Please welcome Miss Angela Yee.
Well, hello. I love seeing you on this side of things, Shawn Prez, Mr. I don't like the cameras, and now you're doing interviews, but I think it's perfect for you.
It's so crazy because, and I speak about this all the time on my platform. So often, we don't do the things that we were drawn to do or what our gifts really are because of fear. And I know for me, you know me for many years, I've worked behind the scenes, never enjoyed being in front of the camera. But when I wanted to step out and motivational speak and really try to help our people and give back to our community, my goals demanded it. And because they demanded it, I had to do something that was extremely uncomfortable for me, which is this.
And now you're comfortable with it, which is good. I feel like the more you do something that's uncomfortable, it just becomes, that's the only way you can get over it, right? Is to just do it and keep on doing it. And then you just get better and better, and then it's smooth. And then one day you're like, I can't believe I used to think I didn't want to do this.
No, but so for me, and I try to encourage people that exact same thing. Sometimes you just got to get out of your comfort zone. Just do it, because the more you do it, you'll realize the fear was the biggest obstacle to get over, because the more you do it, you're going to become great at it or better at it than you ever thought you could be. But the fear just doesn't allow people to even get out the starting gate.
Right. Well, congrats to you. I just want to start off by saying that.
Nah, thank you. Congrats to you. I mean, you got so much going on. I'm so proud of you with all that you've done in your career. I started out talking about that huge milestone that you guys hit, being inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame. And that's something we'll get into later in the conversation. But let me ask you this, just real talk. Did you see your life? And I'm not talking about when you finally got into radio, but as you were coming up, did you see where your life was going to eventually go and who you were going to eventually become?
I always thought I would be a writer. That was my whole goal since I was in kindergarten. I thought I would be just on my own time writing books. I thought I would be writing scripts and plays. And that was really what I wanted to do when I was younger. And I feel like that will still happen. It's just right now, I don't even have time for it. But I feel like I have so much more experience to be able to write about now. So I'm in a space where everything I've been doing now, I think will lead to me still doing what I've always dreamed about doing.
Okay, so let me ask you this, more specific. As this writer that you saw yourself becoming one day, did you ever see the level of success that you've achieved?
I never thought about it. And when I was young, I wasn't honed in on, okay, I got to be really successful. It wasn't even something that entered my mind. I was just like, what do I want to do? I read a lot of books growing up. Like, I used to always be in the library. Every time we had like family gatherings, I would bring a book and read a book and finish a book. I'm like a speed reader to this day. And so I still have tons of, you can see there's some books on the bookshelf behind me. You see all that, and it goes all the way up. But and I have bookshelves in like my guest room. I have bookshelves everywhere in my house. I have books everywhere. But I think what was good about it was, it wasn't about how can I make money or be successful. It was just like, what do I enjoy doing? So it was something that I liked, and I just felt like this is what's going to be my career. And I never, just because I always knew I wanted to do that from such a young age, from when I was like 4 years old, I never really thought about money or success or fame or anything.
I asked you this because I interview so many guests, and, our audience is more entrepreneurs or people who are looking to excel in their careers. And one of the things that I hear again and again from people who are very successful is that you have to visualize. You know, many people will say, well, I saw myself becoming X since I was a child. Do you, you know, you just kind of answered the question that, no, I just did something that I enjoyed, but I wanted to really zone in because so many people who I interview, they're, you know, different than me. You know, they say, I knew what I wanted to do from the time I was born damn near, and it was just about going to get it. So all of that law of attraction and stuff, I don't know that it necessarily played a part in my life as specifically as many others, but I was just wondering about you.
Yeah, I never thought about radio. So, you know, I still haven't done what I think I'm intended to do, but radio is something that kind of fell into my lap. And that's how I got, and I didn't even start doing radio until I was 28 years old. So it wasn't something that I went to school for. It wasn't something that I got an internship and then I worked my way up. It was just something that ended up being an opportunity that I took that, like you said, you know, you might be uncomfortable with something at first, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. And I was so uncomfortable for so long. And, you know, I'm not trained in doing radio. So that's why sometimes I just don't sound like a regular radio personality because that's not what I studied. And so I do feel like there's a difference between people whose goal in life is to make money and people whose goal in life is to do what they feel like is their plan and their destiny that they're set out to do. Because there are people who are like, look, all I want to do is be rich. I don't care how it happens. I just want to make a ton of money. And I do feel like that's not a happy life. You know, money doesn't bring happiness. As we know, we've seen people who won the lottery and then their lives go out of control and it's a mess. And we've seen people who have all the money in the world, but they're depressed. And I just think that when people do things just strictly because I just want to be rich, I want to make money, but they're not thinking about how, why, how they can do things that will benefit other people, what they can do with that money that's actually philanthropical. Is that a word?
Yes.
But I think the more money you make, the more that you actually have to give back. And the more money you make, the more money you spend, truthfully.
No, that's so true. You know, in terms of the giving back, that's exactly why I do what I do. I really believe that the more money you make, if God blessed you to get out of the circumstances that you were born into, especially if you were not born into riches, it's your obligation. It's all of our obligations, not necessarily to give back in terms of just money, but giving back in time, giving back in education, knowledge, wisdom. I think all of those things are why God took us out of the place we started to begin with. He chose us. But I want to go back in the conversation for a second, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. You coming up in Brooklyn, do you have any brothers and sisters? And
I have an older brother.
You have an older brother.
Mm-hmm.
Both parents in the household growing up?
Yes.
Okay, I think we all know, but one of your parents, and I think it's your dad, is Chinese, correct?
Yeah, my dad is Chinese and my mom is Black.
Okay.
She's West Indian.
What kind of child were you, Angie?
I was a bad kid.
Did you say bad?
Yeah, my parents would say that I was like, first of all, I used to like to be outside. I didn't watch a lot of TV growing up. I always wanted to be, I was a tomboy. So I would be like skateboarding outside and playing stuff like softball in the street, running relay races, roller skating. I always wanted to be just outside doing stuff. And I was always really social from when I was young. I would always have like, and this is when we had like a regular phone in the house, no cell phones. But every time the phone rang, it was for me. My parents would, you know how your parents pick up the other line and like, get off the phone. That was my house because I was always on the phone, always talking to my friends, always hanging out with my friends from when I was super young. And so I feel like I grew up that way and I still am kind of like that. I'm still very social. Interestingly enough, I don't talk on the phone a lot anymore because I think I talk all day. So when I have some time, I'm just like ignoring everybody and everything. But I think I grew up as a very social kid. Like I said, I used to read a lot. So that's one thing that I think my parents appreciated about me. I was always reading a book. My brother was very into computers and technology, and he was big on TV, and he wasn't an outside person. We were opposites. So he liked to be in the house watching TV, playing with the computer and doing things like that. And I just like to be outside, like, on my bike, on my roller skates, on the skateboard, doing all that stuff. So we were pretty different. But I also was the type of kid that would always like sneak out of the house. And so I wasn't really doing anything, but I would just like to sneak out of the house. And then we always had people over because we had the most snacks. So my parents always had all kinds of things. So everybody would be like, let's go to Angie's house, because their parents wouldn't let them have all that junk that we had. We had so much junk in the house. And even during coronavirus, my parents, they'll like come see me every couple of weeks, and I'm like, y'all, could you please stop bringing all this junk over here? And when it first started, it was really bad. Like I didn't have any place to put anything, because they would come over here with all this stuff from like Costco. And I'm like, y'all, I don't even eat this anymore. Like, stop bringing this stuff here. So I had to really give it to them. Like, stop. If you want to bring me some bottled water or something like that, but please stop bringing all this junk.
You mentioned how much you enjoy reading and that you were a social kid. Obviously, I could see where this plays a factor in your later life. But were your parents big on education? And what was your education like? You went to 4-year school, and did you get a degree in what?
I got my degree in English from Wesleyan University.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Wesleyan just because so many great people have gone there, like Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote Hamilton. He went to Wesleyan. Wow. My best friend, Santi Gold, she was there with me. And it was a really great liberal arts college. And so I would say that. It's small, so I wasn't used to having to like interact with the same group. We were very cliquish, so you just had like a little group of friends, and that was it. And so it felt small when I was there, but it really is a great school. And I got to take a lot of classes like playwriting, screenwriting, photography, just things I really liked and enjoyed, so that it was fun for me. But I went to private school in Brooklyn, and I hated it. So I went to Poly Prep. And Poly Prep, it's a good school, but it was a lot of racial issues. And I think now in today's world, it's been in the news a lot because of that. But back then, no one cared. So it would be all kinds of, like, they used to send out racist Valentine's Day cards anonymously to different classrooms. It was all kinds of things that would happen. And they were like, I remember one time, in the locker room, there was a basketball game, and the school that was coming to play us, it was a predominantly Black high school, and somebody wrote in the locker room, "N-words go home," and yeah, it was racist like that. And so now I keep seeing all these stories. There's even like an Instagram page, like Poly So Racist or something like that. And I feel like if they would have addressed that way back then and had more opportunities for people to be able to express themselves and more diverse, it wouldn't be blowing up the way that it is today. But it was hard for me. So I left. I went there from 7th grade to 9th grade. Then I left in 10th grade because I was like, it's just too much for me. I wasn't used to it. I grew up going to elementary school with all Black kids. My neighborhood, we were all Black. And then 7th grade, I got thrown into a school that I was one of a handful of Black students, and it was difficult. And so I left and I went to public school. My parents moved to Jersey in 10th grade. So I went to public school in New Jersey, in South Orange, in Maplewood, South Orange. And I went there from 10th grade to 11th grade. That's when I was really bad. That's when I was cutting school all the time. Like, I cut school so much, I almost got left back. I stole my parents' car when it still had the templates on it, and I crashed it twice and put it back in the garage.
You were a bad kid. I'm sorry to cut you off.
I
believe you were a bad kid. To all my movers, if you love educational and inspirational content just like this, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. But most important, if you know anybody making power moves just like you, share it. Now back to the video.
I was a menace. And let me tell you, when I remember I had a birthday party at my house, and these guys got into a fight, and it was Benny Boom was one of them. He got into a fight, and he loves this story, but they got into a fight at my parents' house at my birthday party, and it turned into like a brawl. The police came, somebody broke the glass and jumped through the glass through the front door. It was a melee out there. And I just remember my dad being like, you know what, never again, it's too much. And I really, literally, when I graduated from college, had to move out because my parents were not having it.
Wow. Oh, this is shocking for me because you're always so calm. You're so level-headed. We know you as, the person in between Charlemagne the God and Envy. I would just never know that you had that bad side to you. But
so everybody with your kids right now that's growing up bad, give them a little space. Let them get all that off them now. Because I'm gonna tell you, I always think my parents to this day are still shocked that I turned out the way that I did. I really believe that they did not think that I was ever gonna be in the position that I'm in.
Wow. Okay. I want to jump a little bit to the start of your career. Before you got into radio, and it's so interesting to me that you didn't even get into radio until you were 28 years old, and it was kind of like you fell into it. What were you doing for a living before then?
I was doing marketing, and so I started off working for Wu-Tang. That was my first job when I graduated from college.
Was it a real job or an internship?
It was a real job.
Okay.
I interned there when I was in college. And then when I graduated, they offered me a full-time position. And I was assistant to the CEO. That was Divine, Riz's brother.
Yep.
And so I was basically handling a lot of things in the office, like payroll. I was handling taking care of studio time. And it got to the point where I was the most responsible one because I was always on time. I was always the last one to leave. I would get to work. We had to be there at 10. I would get there at 10 and sometimes no one would come until 1 o'clock. And it got so bad, they got a punch-in clock so that people were supposed to punch in when they got there. And then it turned into them calling me yo, Angela, could you punch me in? So it didn't even matter. I was punching everybody in. And then I'd be there so late every day because Divine would be okay, I'm gonna come and sign these checks because we couldn't pay anybody until he came in and signed the check. And so I would sometimes have to wait there till 8 or 9 o'clock at night for him to just come in and sign the checks. And, but I took care of a lot of things in the office. I learned so much. That was a great first job to have because I got to interact with all the different heads of the labels because Wu-Tang, they were signed to Loud Records and Def Jam and Elektra and Epic and all these different labels. And so I was able to meet all these different people from the different labels. And as a matter of fact, Jizza just texted me the other day and told me he was looking at some footage where back then I interviewed Steve Rifkin because he was working on this Wu-Tang documentary that we still have never finished. But I have some great, and even back then, I wasn't doing radio, but I was the person that was interviewing everybody. And he said it's a really great interview. And I don't even remember. I remember going to Loud Records and talking to Steve Rifkin. And I can't wait to see what it looks like. But we have so much footage. I interviewed all the guys in the group. We got all this footage of Old Dirty Bastard before he passed and all of that. So, it was amazing. But that was my first job. And then I went from there to work for D'Angelo at the label that they started Chiba Sounds at Virgin Records. That was my nightmare job. The worst job I ever had. And it's interesting. I actually spoke to Angie Stone the other day. Her mother had passed away. So we had a conversation because, she has a child with D'Angelo and that was her ex. And it was during that time when things were very turbulent. And so I worked there and then I left that job, or really I got fired. And then I left there and I went to go work for a marketing company called Avenue B Marketing. And then after that, I ended up just becoming a freelancer. And I had several different jobs. I did a great job at the marketing company to the point where a lot of the business that they had when I quit, they actually called me and hired me directly because a lot of his clients really liked me. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So how'd you fall into radio? Because I'm hearing a lot of marketing now, behind the scenes work at different labels. How did radio come into your life?
So Paul Rosenberg, I actually was working for Eminem's clothing line. That was one of my clients, Shady Limited. And I want to just stress this, whenever I work someplace, even if I'm not getting paid what I should be getting paid, I always go above and beyond because one thing I learned is you never know who's watching. And so a lot of opportunities I got came from the relationships that I made while I was working at places. And sometimes it was a struggle. I had issues. I wasn't making the money I was promised that I would make. And you never know who's watching. So you can't ever take that into, I'm going to do what I'm getting paid to do, or I'm not going to give it my all because the money isn't right. You still never know. And so just like I said, a lot of those clients said, Angela, we want you to come, we're going to not use them and we want to just hire you directly. That came from me being there. Even though I wasn't getting compensated properly, I still was going above and beyond because they don't know what's going on personally. So all they know is she's good at her job or she's not good at her job. And so I just want to tell people, like, you really got to represent well because you don't know and they don't know what your situation is. And the same thing goes when you're on the air. People don't really care what's going on in your personal business. Like, you can't be on the air. I had a bad day. I'm going to just have an attitude all day. You kind of just have to still do your job because you're responsible for making sure everybody listening is having a good time. They're having a bad day. They came to you for you to be like, okay, let me cheer it up.
Yeah.
And so it was me working for Shady Limited. That was Eminem's clothing line. I started off freelancing and having that as a client. And then they actually wanted me to come work in-house. And so I ended up working in-house there. Then when that job didn't work out, because obviously the clothing line didn't work out, I actually approached Paul and said I saw a marketing opening at Sirius. And I asked him if he could, just plug me in for an interview. I was like, I just want to interview. I don't need you to get me the job. I just want you to be like, hey, we want Angela, is it okay if we refer somebody? Because sometimes you just want that reference. And I never expect anybody to say, I got a job for you. I just want them to be like, hey, could you interview her? We've worked with her. We think she's good. And so he said, cool. He called them, but he said, we're looking for somebody on the morning show with Cypher Sounds. Mm-hmm. And if you want to audition for that, we would love for you to audition. I can't guarantee that they'll hire you, but at least you'll be able to audition. And so I auditioned. And I auditioned for like 2 months and then they hired me.
Wow. It's interesting. You raised so many great points. And it's a point that I always stress on this same platform. You never know who's watching. You always got to go above and beyond, give 100%. If you are committed and you give your word on something, yes, your money might be short. Yes, you might feel undervalued, but you go in there and you do the job and do it right. In your case, a lot of the upward transitions you made came from just doing great work where you were, even though you might not have been compensated the way you thought you were. So I'm glad that you stressed those points because people who are listening to this, they see you now. They see the success you've had, but they don't necessarily zone in on the road you traveled to get there and all that you had to sacrifice. So I'm so happy that you brought that point out to everyone. You get on Sirius. You're working alongside Cypher Sounds in his morning show. I know eventually he leaves. Do you go straight into your own morning show situation? Because I know you were doing lip service up there at, I don't know if it's the beginning or it's after Cypher left.
Yeah, so while I was on with Sci-Fi, they actually gave me lip service because I had this segment that used to come on every Wednesday, and it was called I Slut It Out. And so, and it was like a funny segment that I would tape with my girls like at night. And then it was just random. Like one girl was like a receptionist, one girl was an attorney, and it was just women anonymously. We gave each other fake names. There was no video. Just talking about like our sex lives and things that we've done, because the point I was trying to make is that women are sexual beings. It don't matter what you do for a living. We have our stories. And so there wasn't, I felt like a space where women could safely share those stories. And I wanted men to be able to hear them too, to understand like you guys are looking at these video women and women in magazines, but we do the same things if we're a receptionist, if we're a doctor, that these women are doing in our sex lives is no different. So you shouldn't judge people based off of what their occupation is. Mm-hmm. And there were some crazy stories on there. We actually did a mixtape for it too. DJ Wonder, he did the Slut It Out mixtape. It was a good mixtape. And we did a Valentine's Day mixtape too that was really good. And I had a lot of celebrities that had contributed like their favorite love song for it. And I remember Nicki Minaj did it. It was a bunch of people that just gave like what their favorite song was, and we just put it into the mixtape. But the whole point was just to show that. And that segment did so well once a week that they actually gave me my own nighttime show. And that's how Lip Service started. Oh, because that segment was so good and people enjoyed it so much and it was really funny. And they were like, look, we want to give you like a nighttime show doing this. And you got to think, when I was on Shade 45, I was the only woman at the time on the station. And so they used to think that because it was a lot of truck drivers had Sirius at the time. It was in the earlier stages, and it was a all hip hop station. So to them, the demo was men, and they didn't know if men would want to listen to a show that a woman was running. And that's what their fear was. Can a woman hold it down, and will men change the station? But I think it was the opposite. I think they enjoyed hearing things from a woman's point of view and hearing women talk. But you know, so you just never know. And I think they just were so like, I don't know, can a woman be on here? Are they going to listen? And so I got my own nighttime show, and that did really well. When Cypher left to go to Hot 97 to do the morning show, he tried to bring me with him. And I had the option Sirius didn't want me to leave. And so they offered me a raise and the morning show for myself if I stayed. And I felt like that was a better opportunity for me to have my own show at that point than for me to go somewhere else and, just be like a sidekick, which honestly, if I didn't have that opportunity, it wouldn't have been a bad decision, because I think for a lot of people in radio, Hot 97 was like the pinnacle of where you could work and be on the air. It's not a lot of people that get that opportunity. So it was a decision for me, and I decided to stay as Sirius and develop my own show. And then a few years later, they actually tried to get me to come on the show again, and I still didn't do it. So I decided to stay. Just
were you doing both shows at the time? I'm sorry. Were you doing both shows at the time, the morning and lip service once a week?
Yeah, because lip service was only once a week, so that was easy. I came back at night once a week to do it, and I enjoyed lip service so much. Like, we really, honestly had such a great time. It was very uncensored back then, and I used to tell, what I would do is I like to have women co-host with me, and then we'll have like a guy on. The whole point was to flip it so that the guy would be in the hot seat, because usually women will walk in a room to do an interview and it's a bunch of guys asking you questions. And now it's the guy walks in the room and it's a bunch of women asking you questions. And it's a whole different dynamic.
Y'all are raw.
Like, we had some of the biggest, like, hardcore dudes on the show. And I just remember they would just be a completely different person when they would be on there. I remember Max B was on. And man, this would be so wrong today, but Max B literally like pulled out his penis because we were making fun of him. Like, oh, we don't believe
Hold on, he did what?
We were like, okay, yes, he did. But listen, what's funny is no one even cared. Everybody was just still talking. And then we were like, all right, are you going to put it away? Like, what are you doing? Just, like, okay. Because we were like, I forgot why he even did it. I think we were talking about it and we were like, we don't believe you. It's not. And he's like, nah, it's big. And he just did it. And he was just standing there like doing the show. And we were like, all right, dude. Like, and he was drunk.
Is this before the days?
Nobody was like, you know what's funny? I have a whole bunch. I found all these DVD tapes I had of the show because we weren't supposed to tape it. And I'll get to that in a second of what happened. But I actually digitized a whole bunch of them and I have another box. So I have to see if it's in with those tapes. But it's incredible. Like, some of the old footage that I have is amazing. Like, I was looking at some of it. I saved it. I put it online and saved it, but I made it private in case I ever want to do anything with it. But when I tell you these interviews, I mean, like, I have so many fun things. Nipsey Hussle's on there. And, he wasn't crazy like that, but he was on there freestyling on lip service. Nicki Minaj was on there a couple of times, and that video is like available on. But I have so many interviews that are really, really
I could only imagine.
So, but when I was at Sirius, they had an issue with, I think, the amount of attention that I was getting. And what I would do is, that's when Ustream was around, like a live streaming thing. Yep. And so I used to Ustream sometimes. And then they made this whole big thing at work, like, you're not allowed to Ustream. You're giving away content that people are supposed to be paying for free. But my whole thing was, people are signing up for the platform because they get to see these clips and they get to see this. And it's really great marketing. Like, why wouldn't we film everything and put it out so that they get to see pieces? Because that's what makes people want to sign up. We have the marketing here in-house for free. And they didn't see it that way. They were very traditional. And they were like, no, we cannot give anything away. No one should hear anything unless they have the service. And I thought that was silly. And so they made this whole policy company-wide that no one was allowed to film, but it was only because of me.
Wow. Okay, I know your time is short, and I wish I had you for much longer, so I'm gonna move this along just a little bit. How do you transition from serious? Because at this point, you're getting job offers. You have got asked to come over to Hot twice. How do you wind up on Power in this amazing, iconic morning show? How does that come into play?
Well, I stayed at Sirius for 6 years. And one thing I did learn is when you feel like you're not happy somewhere, it's time to go. And so instead of staying somewhere and complaining about how unhappy you are and bitching, do your job, but have a plan to get out. And so I had a lot of people coming at me. They offered me Philly. They were talking to me about Atlanta. And then Power 105, they came to me. G-Spin was like, look, we want to get you, on this morning show. And so I was literally leaving the meeting from Philly. And at Philly, they were like, listen, we want you to sign today. We'll do whatever it takes. We're going to give you the morning show. They were like, we're going to rename the station after you while, to help her. It was crazy. And I was like, it all sounded so great to me. They were like, you could bring in who you want, bring in your own team, however you want to do this show. And so I was walking back to my car. And while I was walking back to my car, that's when G-Spin called me and was like, listen, we want to talk to you about doing this morning show. The only problem was, radio, it can move slow. So I had to turn down that job in Philly and hope that New York was going to work. Mm-hmm. And so I turned that down. And then I had to wait a few months for them to even come at me with a contract for New York. And I was like, man, I hope I didn't make a mistake and blow an opportunity. And fortunately, it did eventually come around and I made the right decision and opted to wait it out because I didn't want to get tied up in a contract, in another city and then not be able to seize this opportunity. So it was just weighing it out and figuring out what would be best for me. So that's how that happened.
Was this the same station as Charlemagne was at out in Philly?
Yes, it was after Charlemagne had gotten fired. I think it must have been 100.3 or something. Uh-huh. And because they were like, we're going to call it 100.ye is what they were singing. And, you got to think this whole time, I'm not a radio person, so I don't know any program directors. I don't really know a lot of other radio personalities.
And that was my question to you. That's what my question was going to be. Did you know G-Spin at the time?
I knew G-Spin.
You did know G-Spin?
Because we were in New York. And so I knew G-Spin just from being out and about. And I was really tight with Michael Kaiser from Atlantic Records. And so a lot of people there I knew just because of him. But I didn't know these other, honestly, the program director there, Boogie D, he hit me up on Facebook and was like, hey, I wanted to see if we could have a conversation about bringing you over here. And that's how we initiated the conversation. I didn't personally know him. And so a lot of times, even now to this day, I feel like Envy and Charlemagne know all of these other PDs and personalities, and I don't still. And it's something I have to be better at. I know a lot more, obviously, but it's just not they're like, oh yeah, I remember when I worked at this station and it wasn't like that for me because I've only been two places, Sirius and iHeart.
So for you get over there, we all know what the Breakfast Club has become. Did you know off the bat that there was a chemistry between you three and there was something special waiting? I often hear that it didn't start. I mean, me being a listener, it seems like you guys were rocking from day one, but I guess the numbers weren't.
Pardon me, I'm in Brooklyn. I know you hear the sirens.
Yes, they know. Okay. So did you know, although the numbers may not have shown right away, did you guys know we got something special here? There's just too much chemistry between the three of us.
I believe that we all knew each other anyway ahead of time. And so, we were all going really hard at that time. And I just remember early on, there were some issues that people had with each other. Envy is sensitive and Charlemagne could be a little crazy. So, but I think in general, everybody just wanted to win because so many people were telling us it wouldn't work. People were telling us that a show with three people where no one is the lead person on the show can't work. Most morning shows would be like Steve Harvey in the morning, or it's always one person. And then, the Tom Joyner show, the Wendy Williams show. And they were like, that can't work. It can't work like that. And so a lot of people said that. And now you see everybody's doing shows where it's like just the name of the show and not one person, because now people saw that the formula worked. And so people are trying to do it everywhere. But I think we just all were determined to make it work because, you know, Charlemagne didn't have a job at the time and he was anxious to get back into radio. He'll tell you he was at home, so just doing nothing. And then Envy had given up his shift to come to mornings. He didn't really want to do mornings because his experience on the working with Miss Jones in the morning wasn't that great. So he didn't want to do mornings. And so everybody felt like we got to make this happen. We got to win. And it didn't at first feel like it was going to happen. And it does take a while for people to be put together to find a chemistry, because it's not like we had been working together prior to that. It's not like we had any prep. It was just bang, you're on, now let's go and let's figure this out. But to their credit, what I will say is I think their plan always was to syndicate us, but they wanted to make sure that we were ready to be syndicated, which meant that we had to have our chemistry right. We had to have our segments right. We had to prove to them that we all were dedicated to doing what we were doing before they invested the time and money into syndicating us into other markets. And so that's how that happened. But I do feel like they had a plan all along.
Well, I only ask you this because so many people set out, you know, they start their business or they set out on these new journeys, and they might believe they have a great idea. They might believe I have a great product, but it doesn't immediately take off. And that's why I was asking you, did you guys, not necessarily iHeart, not corporate, did you guys know we have something special here? If we cannot get fired, even though the numbers don't show right away, as long as we continue to go hard, we're going to eventually break through. And it goes to that old saying, persistence overcomes resistance. And I'm trying to bring a point out because people tend to stop too early. Soon as they hit a little opposition, as soon as they hit a bump in the road, they start to question their own great idea and their own greatness. So for you guys, again, you know, I know that iHeart had a plan for you guys eventually. You know, I just want to know, did you feel that this was, I don't care what the numbers say, it's something special here.
Yeah, and I think you have to feel that way, right? Because imagine doing something and then feeling like this is terrible. Like you have to feel like, okay, this is great. We just need to do this, or this is going to get to this level once we do this. And we were doing all these little skits and things like that to just promote the show and go viral. And we understood the importance of being on World Star at that time. And we understood the importance of making sure that we had these little viral videos that we were doing and filming our interviews and things like that. We understood how important that was. You know, I have a marketing background. One of the first things I said was we need a dedicated camera person. We need to make sure that we are online. The reason people even knew who I was because of the videos I was putting out back then. And I don't think people would have really known me like that otherwise, because it wasn't like everyone had Sirius. And so I understood the importance of that. But I don't believe that you'll be successful if you don't believe that you have something special, because you're not going to work that hard if you don't think that it's something amazing. And I do believe in patience. I think a lot of times people see other people's success and feel like that should be them and it should happen quickly because they think it happened quickly, but they don't understand the years that came before a person made it to the level that they made it to. And I think we're so obsessed with instantly going on Instagram and becoming famous, when the truth is that's fleeting. But if you really have something that you built and you have relationships and you have knowledge and you're always educating yourself, then that is how you remain and stay in the game and always make sure that you excel. And that's what and even with all of my businesses that I have, that's a lesson that I always teach myself. Like we just opened a store in Detroit, private label. It's a hair extension store. Mm-hmm. And to me, it just opened a couple of weeks ago. But I don't think that everyone knows that's there yet. It's going to take time. It's going to take months, maybe even over a year for people to know the store is there, to actually come to the store. There's so many things going on and so many distractions that we can't ever assume that people know what's going on, you know? So I just do feel like we have to always constantly be trying to figure out, how can I take this to the next level? We have to constantly just reevaluate things, but also have some patience.
Such great points. Such great points. Has this entrepreneurial spirit always been in you?
No. You know what made me be an entrepreneur? When I started making money and I was like, I don't want to make money and then it's just gone. Because when I was younger, anytime I had a little stack of money, it was just gone like that. And I never really educated myself on finances until I bought this house. This was my first house. And I know before we started the interview, we were talking about how I said I wanted to pay this off, and I did pay it off last year for my birthday in January. Thank you. I made that last payment. It took me like 6 years to pay this off. And I did it. And now I just bought another house. So I'm in the process of redoing that house. But what I've learned is that it's not about stacking your money and keeping it in the bank. It's about having money and then making your money work. And so if I feel like I have a bunch of money in the bank that's doing nothing, that's useless to me. And so, I've been really blessed to open businesses that have been doing well. I haven't seen like a huge turnaround, but I'm patient. This hair store just opened, the juice bar in Brooklyn. We've definitely made back all the money that we've invested in it. It's been great for the community. And I have a Prez juice business that we actually had to restructure, but that's coming back out next month, thankfully. I just was looking at today at what the new bottles look like, but it's going to be amazing. Drink fresh juice. And I have a coffee shop that I'm opening. So today I went to go look at the coffee shop to do the lease for that. So I'm excited. And I have a coffee company called Coffee Uplifts People. It's like right behind me in the background, but I know you can't see it that well. But I started that during this pandemic. And so my whole thing is I do enjoy starting businesses. I do like having brick and mortar locations, but what people have to also do when you have those is have a great online presence and have marketing behind it also to just kind of supplement what your sales are going to be in person, because a lot of people can't come to Brooklyn or come to Detroit and go to your business. So you have to make sure they can order things online, which is something I feel like so many people learned during this pandemic. You have to have like a great online presence. And so those are just some things I'm doing. And I'm starting an investment group for women, and that's actually going to be announced next week. And I'm super excited about that. I already had some of my girls on board, but the whole point is to be able to expand it so anyone can join our investment group and learn how to invest in stocks, because I've been investing in stocks, but not to the level that I should be. And so I did team up with this app called Public, and now they're really supporting me as far as starting this and providing some financial experts to talk to us and give us some tips so that we can be really well educated on it.
That's what I was going to ask you. So you have, because most people would stay away from brick and mortar at this point. I love the fact that you said you have to have an online presence along with the brick and mortar. So it makes sense. That's a great jewel for anybody who's listening. You don't put too much into the market yet?
Well, I do. I mean, it depends on what's too much. Like I've invested in things. I have a stockbroker that always keeps me up, and my portfolio's decent, but I could be doing a lot more. And so I want to be able to have not just my stockbroker, but also have this app that shows me how I can invest in things. And also it's easier for people, like maybe you only want to invest $50. Sometimes it's just getting your feet wet and getting started to feel more confident to be able to do more. And so now I feel a little bit more confident to be able to do more. And so I want to have multiple investments and multiple ways I invest. My stockbroker on the app, then have these financial investors who I can talk to that can really advise me on things that I should be doing. And I want to be able to pay that information forward, because like I told you before, that's what it's all about. If I learn something and I think it's great, I want other people to learn it too. And so that's just how I feel. I'm not like, okay, I know about this, I don't want anybody else to know. I'm more like, okay, I learned this and it worked for me. I'm not good at telling people to do things that didn't work for me. I know people will be like, oh, you just need to do this. It's so easy. There's certain things that I'm like, I'll stay away from that, because if it doesn't work out, I don't want to be responsible for somebody saying, oh, Angela told me to do this. I would rather do things myself. This worked out well. I can recommend it. If you choose to do it or not, that's on you. Educate yourself on it. But if it worked for me, it could potentially work for you.
Let me ask you, before I let you go, you've been doing morning radio for 20 years now or so, or pushing 20 years.
16.
15 years.
Yes, 16.
Can you give me an idea of what your day looks like? How much sleep are you getting? And I'm just really trying to dig deep into the mindset and what it takes, the level of discipline that somebody has to have to reach success. You're up at what time?
So now that I'm at home, I wake up at 5 o'clock. I used to wake up at 4 when I go into the studio, but now I slide out of bed at 5, and I still take a shower in the morning before I come downstairs. I take a shower, throw on my sweats, come downstairs, and set up all my equipment, which is behind me. Yes, on that side. Set up my equipment, and then usually it takes me 30 minutes to take a shower, brush my teeth, come downstairs. And then I come downstairs, I make myself my little espresso and I set up my show. I have to read all these notes for front page news because I always present the stories. So I have to make sure I know what I'm talking about. And we start the show at 6 a.m. And then usually after the show, I have a whole bunch of things I'm doing, like meetings, going to this store, Zoom calls, which we have so many of now. But even tomorrow, I was trying to fit in a meeting, but it's hard because I have a 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, a 5:30, a 7:30. And so it's been a lot. But what I do try to do is have one day that's super light where I might just have one thing after work so I could have a little bit of time.
How much sleep do you get per night?
Maybe about, if I'm lucky, 6 hours is great.
6
hours.
But
I would say on average, maybe about 5 on average, but I try for 6.
And where are you squeezing? Because I know you still do your podcast. So you have
lip service.
Go ahead.
No, I just said lip service.
Yeah, and I'm going over in my brain because I love the fact that you started out one way, which is a radio personality, but you branched in. I mean, I'm listening to you. There's real estate. You are in the market and you're starting this investment group. It's the Prez juices. It's the juices for life. It's the podcast. I'm trying to figure for anybody. You, number one, have to compartmentalize and make sure I don't make mistakes in any of these different areas. You have to trust people, which is very difficult because most business owners and CEOs, one of the problems that we all have is delegating because we're so used to just getting it done. You're spread in a lot of different areas and they don't necessarily overlap. Is this something that comes natural for you? Is it a discipline in learning to just trust people and that they're going to do a great job? And it doesn't sound like a lot of your entities are not doing well. Outside of the Prez juice, which you said, hey, we're restructuring, it seems like you're doing pretty good in all of them.
I think, some of them are so early on, but I think it's good to partner up with people who have different skills that they bring to the table. I know what I'm good at and I know what I need help with. And so if you can find people to work with that actually bring a different set of skills, like maybe it's, I can invest the money and help market, but I need somebody that can handle day-to-day stuff. And you just have to figure out who that person is. You have to figure out who am I going into business as partners with and who am I hiring? Because that's different too, right? Who do I feel comfortable saying this person is a part owner and they have a percentage, and then who is going to be the person that's the manager that has a salary? Because a lot of times when you start a company, just because you're a part owner, you don't make money. Actually, the manager will make more money than you do at first. And so some people would rather care about the money because they can't afford to invest in a business. And so it's just so many different things you take into consideration, but it's also making sure that you show up because you can't just have a business and never go there and not pay attention to what's going on. So, it's important for you to always, and prioritizing, like opening the private label, the hair store in Detroit. I was there for 8 days. I was there every day. We did a little VIP event. It just opened. I'm gonna make sure that I'm there while something's brand new and getting set up. And the juice bar runs pretty smooth on its own. So I don't really need to be there like that because it's been open for 4 years,
Wonderful. Okay, I know you have a meeting after this. It's a pretty obvious question, but where can everybody find you?
on Instagram and Twitter at Angela Yee. Also, I have my Facebook, and I would be remiss not to mention that I also have a show on Facebook that I did that they actually helped me do, and it's called Mastery of Comedy. So I created it and I produced it with my girl, Ricky Hughes, and she has a company called Magic Lemonade, and we took 4 established comedians, Donnell Rawlings, Ada Rodriguez, Carlos Miller, and Roy Wood Jr., and we paired them up with 4 up-and-coming comics to mentor them. And it's really amazing and funny and really beneficial, and everybody enjoyed it. So we did film that. And so that's going to be starting in, I think, like a week and a half on Facebook. So I'll make sure I keep people updated on that. So Facebook also was the whole point of what I was saying.
Yeah, you got a lot going on, girl. Congratulations. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I know you got to run. So all I can say is continue success. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the woman you have grown into, the business person you have grown into. Keep inspiring not just young women out there, but older women and men. I think you're a great role model because so often people get successful, they lose sight of who they are. And I can honestly say your calm demeanor, you know, you're very approachable. You just are a great role model for our community. And you are a true power move maker. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shawn, Prez. And I just want to say I was very flattered that you even asked me to do this. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Okay, girl. What's up, guys? Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the video. Truly appreciate you. If you like anything you heard here today, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you know anybody that can benefit from this message, feel free to share. Peace and love.